Musumba, the founder and executive director for Malkia Foundation. This is an NGO in Western Kenya. That's a rural area in Kenya where we empower girls with educational opportunities and women with skills for enterprise development for sustainability. We used to pay school fees for girls, but right now we are not paying because we realized that besides it being a bottomless pit where we just put money and didn't get anything out, we were neglecting boys, because the girls we helped most definitely had brothers who were facing the same problems and who we were not taking through school. So right now we are empowering their mothers through table banking and microfinance loans to be able to pay their own children's school fees. So right now they borrow, they save, borrow, and then save again, borrow again, then use the money for different reasons. Some put it into business, others put it into other activities, some mostly farmers. And then with the produce they get from the farming, the profits they get from the businesses, they use the money to pay school fees for all their children. So right now they're educating both boys and girls. Why do I do what I do? I have so many reasons for doing what I do. I started Malkia Foundation as the Center for Disadvantaged Girls, which was a CBO, a community-based organization, which started by providing school supplies for girls. This was because there was need for girls getting some supplies in order to go to school, in terms of pencils, pens, and basically reading and writing material. This because I come from a very poor community where people survive on actually less than $1 or $2 per day. So my journey started by virtue of my having been born in a very poor family. I come from the humblest of humble backgrounds. My mother couldn't afford school fees. In fact, all my years through school, I never paid school fees. I was bright, so one teacher would buy me pencils, another one would buy me reading material, another one writing material, another one would buy me a uniform, and yet another one would buy me anything else I needed to be in school. But all in all, I remember that I never wore shoes to school. I never had a sweater to school. And my mother never paid a single cent for me to go to school. So it continued this way until my 11th grade, when I had to drop out of school because there was nobody. It was becoming more expensive for me to afford to go to school, to afford to get somebody to help me, because even the teachers who were helping me had their own needs. Maybe their children had grown old enough now to go to high school, so there was nobody else to help me. So, long story short, I was 17 years when I dropped out of school, and I didn't have anything else to do. So when I went home, my mom told me there are only 3 things that school dropouts do. You either become a barmaid, you either become a house girl, or you get married. So I told myself, okay, I don't see myself working in a bar, being groped by men here and there, or working as a house help. It didn't really appeal to me. So I told myself, I think getting married would be a better idea. So around the same time, I met my first boyfriend, who is still my husband right now. We've been together for 23 years now. And I'm 40 years old. So I know I fight child marriage because I was a child bride, having gotten married at 17. I fight poverty because I've been poor all my life. I was born poor, I've grown up poor. I've been in my marriage poor. I'm still poor. So I fight that poverty because I know how it feels to be poor, because I live with that poverty. To me, money means nothing. It's just a means to an end. It's a means to survive. That's why whatever money I get, I make sure that I use it with others, even if I don't use it with them directly. But I make sure that at least I make somebody's life at least a bit comfortable than it was before. So about fighting disease and helping women have safe deliveries, I help women keep their children healthy, because I lost my son. He was 2.5 years old when he died, and I just had to watch him die because I was too poor to afford to take him to a doctor. So watching him die was painful, but there was nothing I could do. And he's being 2.5 years old. He was more mature upstairs, I can say, than myself, because what he told me that time was too much. It was the most he told me in all his 2.5 years life, because when in the morning he told me that, one day he told me that my other son, who was 4 months old at that time, he's 13 now, he was ill. In fact, he's the one I thought was going to die because he was very ill. So when I took him to hospital, I thought that my son would, he is the one who was going to die, and my older son would get better. So I told my house girl at that time, please bring CJ along, so that as we take Dylan to the hospital, he can be treated also. So we took them both to the hospital, and the doctor said that CJ was fine, to bring Dylan after 3 days. So after 3 days, I took him back to the hospital, and coincidentally that day was the eve of my graduation. So taking him there, the doctor said he was fine, and Dylan was also pronounced fine. They were given some medicine. So this was not a qualified doctor. He was just, she was just a quack in the community, an affordable person, because he accepted to treat my children for free. So I took them there, and then we went back home, and my son said he wanted chapati. Chapati is a meal that's made in Kenya from wheat flour. In the US they call them wraps, and the Mexicans call them tacos. And so I made him some. I talked to my sister, because at that time we could barely afford food. So I talked to my sister, who brought all the ingredients for me to make that meal for him. So when I made that meal, a grown-up can only take, the chapatis made at home, a grown-up can only take 2, or at most 3. But my son that day took 3 of them, alone, with green grams, lentils. So I was worried that he was going to have a running stomach and such, but then he didn't. He slept well, and come in the morning, I was now supposed to go and graduate for my diploma in mass communication. So I had put on this gown, and then I was going, and my son tells me, you are not going anywhere today. So I tell him, no baby, I have to go because my graduation is today, but I'll make sure I come early so that we can play. And he says we won't be playing today. So I told him, no, let me go and then come back, because I'm actually running late. I'm almost, it's almost time. And he says, no, mommy, you won't go. And he refuses to be bathed by the house girl. So I had to bathe him myself because she said, today auntie won't give me my bath. I just want you to bathe me yourself. Then I told him, okay, I'll give you your bath, but then I have to go and auntie has to help you put on clean clothes. And he says, no, just give me the innerwear, because even if you put on the clean clothes on me, they'll still take them off. So I wondered, what was this boy saying? So in the course of, after I had given him a bath, he says, when I was now applying petroleum jelly on his body, and he says, and I take a shirt to put on him, and he says, no, don't put on me a shirt, just the underwear, like I told you. So I put on his innerwear, and then he told me, Mommy, can you sing for me? Then the song he wanted was so religious. I sang it, and then something clicked that maybe this boy was going to die. So I started crying. When he saw my tears, he told me, don't cry, Mom, because Dylan will be okay. Dylan will grow up into a big man, and he'll help you. So I told him, okay, don't say that, don't talk like that. And he said, okay, don't cry, Mom, just pray for me. Then I prayed, and my son said amen, and then died. That was the hardest time of my life. I'm sorry. But I learned to live with it. So I fight for women to be able to take care of their children, because I watched my own son die. Because I couldn't afford proper medication for him. So round about the same time I was dropping out of school, I met my husband, and then I got married to him, and in 5 years we had 2 daughters. I'm sorry I digressed. And then these daughters, it was so hard to take care of them because there was no food. There was actually nothing. I used to feed my daughter on stones because she was 3 at that time, and my other daughter was only like a few months old, so I didn't even have milk in my breasts to feed her. So I would give her water, and I would feed my older daughter, my Ashley, on stones, because where we lived, there was a lot of construction going on. So I would go and pick those soft stones and give her to eat. After I would give her a big mug of water to simulate a full stomach. And you know, when you take stones and then you take a lot of water, you feel so full. You can be full for several days. So I help mothers keep away hunger because of that. And then I help girls go to school because of my own situation. So in 5 years I realized I had to go back to school, because without education it becomes so hard to live. It was so hard because my husband could not support us. He didn't have a job. And so in his not having a job, he would just stay there. And I had to look for ways and means in which my babies would survive. So I went out and borrowed some $20 from my brother-in-law. He sent me the money. He gave me the money, and I started an onion business. So out of this onion business, I made a loss after loss after loss. So in 2 weeks I realized I was not cut out to be a businesswoman. So I gave up the business because I lost it. There was nothing. There was no single cent. I didn't have any onions to sell anymore. But it was just me, and I had to trek a long way from the market to where we stayed, and we stayed at the other end of town. So as I was walking back home, I could see people, I could meet people on the way. Very few, a handful were walking, but people were in vehicles because I had never gone on foot. So I had to follow the main road. I didn't know any shortcuts, which I would have followed. So on the road, I saw people who were coming from the opposite direction and others going from the same direction I was going. So some were riding bicycles, motorcycles, some were in public vehicles, and others were in their private vehicles. So as I was looking at them, a thought came into my head that I'm walking as people are riding vehicles or other modes of transport that are easier because I don't have any education. Maybe if I had a certificate, maybe if I had finished high school, I wouldn't be walking the way I'm walking. So I started thinking about how life would be easier for my children if I had an education. So I went back. The more I thought about it, the faster I walked because I was excited, and within no time I was home. A journey that took me like, I walked for almost 3.5 hours. So when I got home, I told myself that I'm so wishing that my children don't cooperate today and they don't go to bed early, because I usually, at those days I would want them to sleep early and they would just stay late up to like 10 or sometimes 10:30. But this day, as I was praying that they don't go to sleep, they don't go to sleep early, they were asleep before 7, because I was dreading how I was going to tell my husband that I didn't have a business and I wanted to go to school. You know, we come from Africa. We were trained that girls don't go to school. So I was wondering, what will he do? What will be his reaction when he learns that I want to go back to school? I want to go further than high school. So when I got home and the kids, I don't know what happened. They were asleep before 7, and I had hoped they would maybe last until 9, 10, and then to prolong my husband's reaction. So he was watching me, and he tells me that I think something is wrong with you. Why don't you just tell me what it is? Then I told him, no, there's nothing wrong with me. And then he says, no, I've been watching you since you came in, and something is definitely wrong. Just tell me what it is. Then I told him, I have 2 things to tell you, but I don't know what your reaction is going to be. You know, in as much as I had borrowed that money to start the onion business from my brother-in-law, I don't know, he had a stake in it. So I had to answer to him, now that the money is lost, what next? So I told him I lost the onion business, and I don't know what to do because I don't have any onions to sell, and I don't have any money with which to buy a new sack. And he says, that's not the end of life. No, he kept quiet first. And then he said, what about the second thing? Then I just blurted, I want to go back to school. I want a high school certificate. And then I looked on the floor. I couldn't look at him because I didn't know what his reaction was going to be. In fact, I was waiting maybe for a blow or anything just to fall. So as I was waiting for the hammer to fall, I looked on the floor for around 5 seconds. Those are the 5 seconds of my life. So he was not saying anything. He was not reacting. So when I raised my eyes to look at him, the guy was smiling. So I asked him, what's funny about my going to school? And he told me, that's the best thing you ever said to me. So when he said that, I asked him, what did you say? Are you sure? And he said, I can't tell you not to go to school when you want to go to school. And that's the best thing he ever said, because you can only have, education is everything. And then I told him, I thought you were going to hit me or something else. And he told me that in all the 5 years we've stayed together, that's the best thing he ever said. Then I told him, okay, thank you. So long story short, we borrowed my registration money from his cousin. So I went and registered as a private candidate because I couldn't go to school as I was the breadwinner. And I was the wife, the housekeeper, everything that was on me. So I registered as a private candidate, and I used his books, the ones he used to have in school. And when the results came, I had passed. So after that, I felt that I wanted to do more. So he arranged for me to talk to his sponsor, because he had been educated in one of the best schools in Africa for boys, the Starehe Boys Center. So he talked to his sponsor. I talked to his sponsor, and then he sponsored me through my diploma in mass communication. And it was very tough because they were only paying school fees. I was supposed to get myself to class and back. And there being no money, it was so hard, because now you have to work and you have to be in class full time. So you have to work, you have to look for a time to work, and you still have to take care of the kids, take care of their father and everything. So it was a bit hard, but I managed. And I thank God that I got that diploma, in as much as my son now died on my graduation day. So in fact, it's his, today is an anniversary of his death. It's 13 years today since he died, because he died on 13th May. So long story short, I founded Malkia Foundation to help women not live the life I lived, because there are some kinds of foods I don't eat. Not because they are bad, not because their flavor is bad, but because at that time we used to, you would put some food on the stove to cook, but since there was no kerosene in the stove, you would have to eat it raw. And you would have to eat something raw for breakfast, you would eat it raw for lunch, and then you'd still eat it raw for dinner. And it's not a good sight. I tell you, it's not a nice thing. It's not a nice place to be. So we've taken girls to school. I'm happy that I've been able to, myself, I don't consider myself as having enough education, because I would love to have myself a bachelor's degree, a master's, even a PhD. But I'm happy that most of the girls who have passed through me, we have managed to take them to school, through primary, high school, and university. Up to now, we've educated 166 girls, and they are still going on. And I'm happy when I create a smile, I get a smile on a girl's face, because she is able to finish her education. I'm happy when children smile, even when it's just because I've given them hand-downs from my children. I'm happy when mothers smile, because right now they can be able to meet all their needs. And I'm essentially happy that I'm now considered an employer. I've never been employed myself, except for that one time when someone tricked me into employing me, but he didn't pay me. For 4 months I worked for him for free, but then he actually helped me a lot, because I had to learn by observing what he did to be in the printing business. And being in the printing business is what I have done all these years, to be able to support Malkia Foundation. For 13 years, we didn't have any funding. So we got our first funding in 2015, and that was 2 years ago. We've been able to get our premises. We used to use my own house as the office, but right now we have the premises, and this year we have managed to buy some land on which to build a STEM school for girls. We are going to start our school from kindergarten for the girls, because we live in a society that has programmed girls to believe that they can't do math, they can't do science, that these are preserves for the boys. And we are not taking the girls from high school or primary school, because we believe the girls in high school and primary already know that they can't do math. The girls we are working with are from 3-year-olds in kindergarten, because their minds are not corrupted. So we want them to grow up knowing that they are girls. They can do math, they can code, they can do science, they can do anything. They can become virtually anything they want on the earth. And we have also started some cottage industries. We are making soap. We are making school uniforms. We're making soap because it's a basic commodity in Kenya. Every household buys soap. We are making school uniforms because at least everybody in every homestead goes to school. So they need school uniforms. And we are trying to make the school uniforms as affordable to parents as possible, because the amount of money that these parents spend on school fees is usually too much. It's actually what they could use to pay school fees for their children. So we are going to make our uniforms as affordable as even less than half the price that they are used to paying, so that no children stay back home because they don't have school uniforms. And we have our mini microfinance. It's not that big. It's essentially table banking, but it has done wonders for the women. That has reaffirmed my belief that 90% of women who borrow pay back, because they've been able to, every time they borrow the money, they pay back. That's why everybody else is able to. It's just an ongoing, an evolution, an ongoing situation whereby everybody can come in, save and borrow. They save and borrow every time. And what's happening is that we have so many other women who would love to join, but our resources are very limited. So we are trying that whatever resources we get, we inject them into the mini microfinance, so that we can bring in so many other women, so that they can take care of their children. So in conclusion, I would like to say that I thank God for essentially putting me on this earth. I might have gone through a lot, which I can't put everything in words, but I just want to say thank you for being there. My being there has made other women not to be there, because I was there for them. Like the way I fight homelessness, I was homeless after I buried my son. We came back to Nairobi, and my husband had to remain back home because he had to work on, to do some manual work to raise his money, his fare to the city. So when we came back, the landlord didn't want to know. She locked us out. So there I was with 3 children out in the cold. I never used to know how cold it is after midnight. That's the coldest time of all the hours. So I didn't have anything, because she didn't throw us out with, she only threw us out with the clothes on our backs. So I didn't even have anything with which to cover my baby. At that time he was only 4 months old. My son now is 13. But so what I used to do, I would take him and put him on my stomach, inside my clothes, to keep him warm. And during the day, my daughters would walk around on the dust piles and the garbage piles and collect some papers with which to warm themselves. And I'm just happy that I've been able to educate my two daughters who suffered the most with me. One is doing her journalism. She's in her 3rd year. She graduates next year. The other one is doing her nursing. She just started her nursing career, her nursing course. I'm hoping that they'll be very productive members of society and they can give back to society because they know their roots, they know where they come from. And I thank God that I was there. I thank God that I went through it so that many others couldn't go through it. Thank you.